What's up? We're going to be starting the Kennedy twin lifts here. I need to install the oil pressure sensor, so it's time for an oil change anyway, so I'm going to be doing that. In between installing the oil change, if you guys have ever tried this BG EPR. This one's more for diesels. They have another one for gas engines, but it works great. Be careful if you have a lot of sludge in your engine, but getting this Kennedy installed, I went ahead. Here we have the truck bed lifted up. There's 4 screws. So there's one right there. There's another one up front. And I think this is 3 right here. Actually, no, that's not one. There's 2 in the back. Back there, there's one, and there's one a little farther back. So I kept the harness and everything, the wiring harnesses connected. I just wanted enough room to lift it up so I can kind of see what I was doing. I did disconnect the fuel diesel, whatchamacallit. There's 3 screws, 1, 2, and 3. And so what we've got is besides death is the truck bed never falls. So got a couple taps on top. This is looking in from the driver's side. It's obvious which one just got changed out. Sliding it over the bump ring, use the supplied hose clamps he gives. Then I routed it down. When you pull this old hose out, you'll see how it's routed, and I just routed that one the same way. And so getting back under here, there's the fuel cooler right there. Knock it off. Get back inside. So it's routed through that thing. And then there's the hose. I'm in the process of molding it right now, but ran it through. This is the hose right here. Kind of secured it to there. And, oh no, I'm sorry. So this is the hose right here that we were just checking out. And I got it going into the inlet of the Kennedy and then the outlet coming back around. I'm not going to keep this like this. Fuelfilterkits.com is sending me some stuff that I picked out, not their whole kit, because one of their whole kits comes with one of these pumps or something similar to it anyway. So I'm going to have basically buy another one of John Kennedy's brackets and offset it over here. I'm possibly using the same bolt hole, maybe not, but run this hose in through a water separator, out a water separator, into the inlet of the twin pumps, out the outlet of the twin pumps, into a cat like I think it's 05741 filter head. I think it's about a 10-inch filter head. If I get the filter mounted almost to the firewall up there, there should be plenty of room for it to hang. I think the 4.9 is a 10-inch one, and then the 5.1 is like a 8-inch or 7-inch, something like that. So there'd be much more room, but with the extra surface area, that 4.9 is going to be a lot less restrictive. And let's see. There's another look at it. And all in all, in a nutshell, that's the setup. So I'm going to be installing the oil pressure sensor here. Looking at my options, I think it's probably going to be best. I don't really trust not having a good hold on this if I don't have a lot of space. So I'm just going to be tightening it out of the vehicle. And I think I can get my 7/8 in there to turn this brass piece in kind of the same way I took that Allen out. And so that's the plan anyway. Actually, I can get a pretty good grip on it with this crescent here, so that should be good. So this piece, what I'm talking about here, yeah, I got a pretty good grip on it. So just going to apply some thread sealant on it, as it says, and then go ahead and install it. Here, installing the oil pressure switch. I got the driver's side wheel well removed, and that bolt right there, that's the oil filter housing, the one in the center, that is what we are trying to remove to install that oil pressure switch. That's right where your oil filter would set, right there. Front of the vehicle's that way. So what I'm doing is get yourself, is that my 10 or my 3/8? No, it's a 3/8. Get yourself a 10 millimeter. 3/8 is going to be a little too small. You're going to strip that. So get yourself a 10 millimeter. Stick it right in there. And you basically have to have the oil filter out to do this. If you can think of another way, fine. But when you turn the Allen, it's going to turn right into that oil filter that's right there. Just can't do it. Luckily, it's time for me to change my oil. So then what I got is a ratchet here, and what I'm doing, there's that Allen. I'm just fitting it onto the that Allen, and once I got that initial and basically pushing the whole thing up for leverage. Once I got it cracked, it came out it's now turning out no problem, and that bolt is where we're going to install that pressure switch. Alright, so we're going to be taking that 7/8 out here, and I am very, let's see what's the right word, monodextrous. Basically useless with the left side of my body, so I'm not sure how much I can do while recording here. There we go. Good amount of Loctite. That's red, so they really did not want that thing coming out of there. Just gonna start hand threading it here. Definitely do not want to strip this thing out. Okay, now to go under for the rest of the party. So anyway, what we're doing, just going to go ahead and put oil back in it, or put the oil filter on, the drain plug, put oil back in it. From running the engine with the BG engine treatment, I had it running for about 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and then it drained all the sludge out. So I've already got the system primed. I'm just going to drive it around, make sure, as per John's recommendations, make sure there's no air in this. install here. I'm tapping into what my truck shows for the LMM as the extra ignition port or whatever it calls. Just on a side note, whenever you guys tap into a fuse, make sure that you tap into the load side and not the line. If you tapped into the line side, you're basically bypassing the fuse and you can cause some issues. So you want to make sure which side of that fuse gets power first. What I did was I just kind of stuck a wire in each side and saw which side was hot when I turned the ignition on, and then the side that wasn't hot with the fuse pulled, well, I know that that's the load side, because it would be after the fuse, which is the left side that I have on there now, but your truck might be different. Alright, here we go. We're all complete. Got the oil pressure sensor all installed. You can kind of see it from up top. I don't know if you can see that, but I can. I got the wiring harness all installed. So there's my kind of jumper fused link. If I ever have any issues, I'll probably put in an add a fuse, but I had that fuse unplugged and everything still worked, so I don't know if that fuse is currently doing anything besides just the pump, or if there was something that I don't know about, but I had it out and everything still started up and ran fine. Here is the kind of clever switch that he has. Underneath it, there's a button. I have the harness unplugged at the pump, so there's nothing plugging into it, but it's powered up, but the switch is powered up. So there you go with the red light. You can press it and basically run the pump as long as you press that button. And I got my own little ground there. That's a fusible link, that blue wire. So I was hesitant about plugging that straight into power, but after I read it was a fusible link, it's no big deal. So if something ever happens, it'll just blow that link. Other than that, just kind of filling up with oil there, and should be off to the races. So gotta just bolt my truck bed back together and should be good to go. Alright, what's up, fellas? Just wanted to go over the final points of the install, things that I didn't mention earlier and whatever. Looking back on the install, I feel like I probably could have done it without lifting up the truck bed. Hopefully my video of lifting up the truck bed will kind of give somebody a better idea, but I have never really messed with fuel lines before or anything like that, so I definitely wanted to make sure I knew what I was looking at. I would say to somebody, probably attempt it before bothering to lift the truck bed up. You should be able to easily enough do it without lifting it up, but I wanted to do it just so that I could easily enough see with what I was doing. That's basically the OEM line that you're taking out in between those two ports that I was pointing out. You're basically just taking that out. You got two lines that you're sticking the Kennedy pump in between and calling it good. Secondly, I didn't mention it, but one of those bump rings was a pain in the butt to get that hose over. John supplied the hoses. It's half-inch hose. I was thinking I probably would have gone 5/8 if I had to purchase the hoses myself. But nonetheless, I just took some sockets and stuck them in the hoses and basically reamed them out overnight because I was having such trouble getting them over there. And after sitting overnight, slipped the hoses over those bump rings and they slipped right over no problem. So do yourself some favor and stick some sockets in there, biggest ones that you can fit, along with a lot of WD-40 so you can get it back out. And you should be able to get those bump rings on no problem. Another thing, I want to talk about why I chose the Kennedy setup over faster air dogs. So, I mean, unless you're in some kind of trailer pulling competition or anything like that, where you're just starving for horsepower, the average person, you're getting probably 18 to 20 miles a gallon on the highway, doing about 70 miles an hour. If you're hot dogging it around town or towing a fifth-er, you're probably getting between maybe 8 and 12, 13 miles a gallon around town. So say 18 miles a gallon or so, doing 70, that's basically 3 gallons per hour, with some rough math. Maybe 7-8 gallons or so per hour, depending on anything else that you might do with it. So with a faster air dog, that's a 90 to 140, 145, 145 gallons per hour going back into the fuel tank, aerating it, sloshing it. That's where you get quarter tank issues, pickup issues, having to overcome that by drilling a hole in your tank and installing a sump. Those fast and air dogs and such create about as many problems as they help, that you just got to put more money into to try and cure. Kennedy, you're not going to have those problems. It doesn't send fuel back into the tank. The injectors only use what they use. And so that was one of the reasons why I did this. Another thing I wanted to mention, I went with the twin setup, which is probably what I would recommend anybody doing. Main reason is, let's say you just get the single and you just get an itch over time and the single turns out like it's not enough, you got to go for twins. You'll save a good amount of money just doing the twins in the beginning than buying the extra stuff that you need to basically make twins. And so just do it all when you do it and you should be good to go. One thing that I really wanted to stress is those pumps are silent. Like, they're absolutely silent. I was under the truck and had my wife turn the keys 2 clicks forward while I had my hand on the pumps, and I still couldn't tell they were running after I had it installed. I'm going to end up buying John's fuel pressure test gauge just so that I could tell kind of when the fuel filters from fuelfilterkits.com are ready to be replaced. I'm just doing my stocker probably every 20,000, just calling it good. That's going to be the last in line because it's a pain in the butt to change. But it is just absolutely silent. I ended up cracking the bleeder screw on the fuel filter, the OEM fuel filter housing, and pressing the button on John's wiring harness, and I had fuel shooting out, so I definitely know the pumps are working. And of course this was after I drove it around to get all the air out of the system. So the pumps are super quiet. We just got back from a trip out of state. I think I got maybe a mile or two better fuel economy than I had last time. Maybe it was just driving conditions, I'm not sure. I didn't buy the pumps for better fuel economy. I did for injectors and other such things. But also with the twins, if you are going to get ancillary fuel filters or a water separator or something, I figured the extra pressure would be good with that extra filtration. And then also with doing these, one thing I definitely did notice on our trip, which we did basically just after I installed it, is there's a much better pickup on power. It feels much more responsive, and I take my work vehicle home. This is pretty much just kind of for putting around town and towing a fifth wheel with is what we use this guy for. But essentially, I'm really pleased with John's product. I went back and forth a couple times with him. Really good customer service. Kind of walking me through a couple things that I needed clarification on. So all in all, great kit, great setup, and I do recommend.